From submerged aircraft to strange signs of lost civilizations, here are 8 of the most incredible underwater discoveries ever. Japanese submarine in Hawaii. Hawaii is a place of natural wonder, but something that was found underwater off the southwest coast of Oahu has ties to a troublesome past. Discovered by the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory at the University of Hawaii, a mammoth World War II-era Japanese submarine was found submerged in 2,300 feet of water. But just how did it get there? Measuring 400 feet, 125 meters long, the I-400 was one of the largest submarines ever built before the nuclear age. But just how did a submarine that was meant to target US mainland landmarks end up at the bottom of the ocean? Even though the ships were never used to attack the mainland United States, they did see limited service before Japan surrendered in 1945. Captured by the United States Navy at the end of World War II and sent to Hawaii for examination, the submarine was later scuttled, deliberately sunk to prevent the technology from falling into the hands of the Soviet Navy. The unexpected find is just one of 3 other ships that were found by the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory in August of 2013. Before the public was notified of the find, the US State Department and the Japanese government had to be told. Capable of reaching any point on the globe without refueling, the submarines were an example of how the Japanese shifted their use of the technology, which before then had been only used as anti-ship weapons. The I-400 was effectively an underwater aircraft carrier that had 3 folded wing seaplanes that could carry an 1,800-pound, 800-kilogram bomb. This incredible find is not only a link to the trials of war, but it is also a stark reminder that powerful things are still hidden under the surface of the world's oceans. Port Royal, Jamaica. In 1692, an earthquake ravaged the Jamaican city of Port Royal. What some dubbed as the most wicked and sinful city in the world, Port Royal was known for its pirates and rowdy late-night activities. However, it was its natural harbor that made it a beacon for Englishmen living on the high seas. But when a 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit the island, the city that was largely built over sand fell into the sea, with buildings, roads, and citizens sucked into the ground. Tsunami waves rolled in to destroy what was left, dragging debris out to sea and most of the city along with it. 2,000 people were killed, and to make matters worse, the bodies from a local cemetery floated up to the surface of the ocean. With an already intriguing and turbulent history as it grew into the most important trading post in the New World, Port Royal also suffered fires and hurricanes after the devastating earthquake. Existing for just over 37 years, it would only take a few minutes for the city to sink into the harbor. Located on a short sand spit 15 miles, 40 kilometers from the center of Kingston, Port Royal sits at the end of a peninsula completely surrounded by water. A hub for the Caribbean and known as the most economically important English port in the Americas, Port Royal hosted merchants, artisans, captains, and slaves, and notorious pirates who helped to create the expansive business network housed there. But it wasn't just about debauchery or the slave trade there. It is also home to a governor's house, a king's house, 4 churches, and a cathedral, most of which were made from brick. Of the original land making up Port Royal, more than half sunk under the sea, with a further 3,000 poor souls dying of injuries and disease shortly after the earthquake. The once infamous city, reduced to rubble, had further devastation a few years later when a great fire broke out and set ablaze quantities of gunpowder and other flammable material. Today, most of Port Royal's secrets remain deep underwater, with much of it being rebuilt on the parts that remain above sea level. Pretty interesting, right? Would you like to go scuba diving here? Let me know in the comments below. Ghost plane. We've all done it one time or another. Tons of people have spent hours scrolling around on Google Maps looking for interesting landmarks or secret locations to share. But when the ghostly image of a submerged passenger airplane was spotted, people began to get worried. Spotted in Lake Harriet in Minneapolis, the pictures of the airplane submerged underwater are enough to give viewers a chill down their spine. Officials investigated after the image was brought to their attention and did not find any record of a plane crash in the area. It took a spokeswoman at Google Maps to explain a possible reason for the strange sighting. Because Google uses satellite imagery to create the maps, the spokeswoman believes the picture of the lake was taken at the same time that an airplane was flying overhead. It simply allowed the 2 objects to merge, making it look like there was an airplane underwater. Every satellite image on the map is a compilation of several images, so fast-moving objects like planes only show up in one of many images used for any given area. Located 5 miles from Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, Lake Lake area is directly under the flight path where 400,000 planes land and take off each year. This makes it even more plausible that the image is simply a case of an optical illusion. But this isn't the only Google satellite image that shows planes in mysterious places. Other eagle-eyed internet users have found a passenger plane sitting in a playground, as well as one seen in the Atlantic Ocean near Long Beach, New York. However, the next time you are doing a little late night scrolling around Google Earth and see something strange in the water, take a closer look. It might just be something real and important. You never know, so it's worth it to double check. Have you ever found something cool on Google Earth? Let me know about it in the comments below. Baltic Sea Anomaly. In 2011, an anomaly was spotted on the ocean floor of the Baltic Sea. The mysterious object is 210 feet long, 65 meters, and is a strange shape that shows up on sonar images 300 feet, 90 meters beneath the ocean surface. Various theories have circled around the object, including some believing it is part of a fleet of crashed UFOs. Some conspiracy theorists even say it has a striking resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. More believable is that the object could be the remnants of a sunken lost city, but a group of divers who were able to collect samples from the mysterious object now believe that it is a glacial deposit, possibly carved from moving glaciers that traveled through the area during the Ice Age. Scientists from Stockholm University were able to research these samples and found that it is indeed remnants from that process. An associate professor of geology at Stockholm University found the material to be volcanic rock that was formed during the Ice Age many thousands of years ago. Belief that the rocks were transported there by the glaciers puts to rest some of the conspiracy theories, but that doesn't make the find any less incredible. Measuring 26 feet tall, 8 meters, the object was discovered by a Swedish explorer during a dive looking for a shipwreck. When they got within 650 feet, 200 meters of the anomaly, their electrical equipment stopped working. Something in the object is able to interfere with electrical devices, but until more research can be done on the findings, at least the conspiracy theories about a sunken alien ship can be put to rest. Underwater Crimean Museum. These days, you might be willing to travel to the ends of the earth to visit a museum. But would you travel to the bottom of the ocean? If your answer is yes, then head to Crimea, where an underwater museum at Cape Tarkankut features a collection of busts of communist leaders and the heads of socialism throughout the history of the USSR. Lined up on store shelves and racks and buried underwater, the collection has more than 50 different busts. Known as the Alley of Leaders, the unusual museum is 50 feet deep, but don't worry. No sculptures were harmed in the making of this collection. They were already dismantled in the Crimean cities and towns where they were taken from, so the diver who originally installed the first sculpture continued to recycle the pieces, with other divers expanding the collection by bringing sculptures from all over Ukraine to add to the collection. With some depicting both Stalin and Lenin among other former leaders, the Underwater Museum is a fascinating collection that is definitely out of the ordinary. Mediterranean Monolith. On the seafloor near Sicily, researchers discovered a massive stone monolith that stretched 40 feet, 12 meters tall. Armed with cameras and video recorders, researchers dove 130 feet, 40 meters underwater to get a look at the exciting discovery. The monolith was man-made and originally believed to have been created by people who lived 10,000 years ago. The irregular-shaped object has 3 holes with similar diameters. The stone monolith is believed to have once housed a torch, allowing the stone structure to act as a lighthouse to separate the settlement from the sea. Interestingly enough, the monolith doesn't match the 10-million-year-old rocks that are found on the ocean floor around it. Instead, it is made up of a composition of rocks similar to those found on a ridge in a shallow marine area. The fact that the monolith was made by man and not a natural phenomenon is fascinating, with the stone dating back to the late Pleistocene era, about 40,000 years ago during the last ice age. As the glaciers melted during that time and coastlines retreated, the Sicilian Channel would have been treacherous to travel through. Researchers believe the people who lived on the islands possibly constructed the monolith to light the way for incoming ships. During that time, as the sea level and the Mediterranean rose, there was an archipelago between Sicily and modern-day Tunisia. Acting as a bridge between the European world and the African nation, the inhabitants may have come from Sicily before the archipelago disappeared underwater around 9,500 years ago. That means the monolith would have had to have been erected before then. The exciting find gives more evidence to the fact that the ancient people, notably hunter-gatherers, could have possibly created the monolith from a single large broad block of stone that required cutting, extraction, transportation, and installation. Advanced technical skills and engineering would have been needed, showing that the ancient people in this area were more sophisticated than historians had previously even imagined. Ancient native burial ground. In 2018, an ancient Native American burial ground was discovered off the coast of Florida. An underwater archaeologist happened upon it by chance when he was diving off the coast of Minnesota Key near Venice, Florida. Searching for the giant teeth of the megalodon, the archaeologist discovered the settlement believed to be 7,200 years old. Discovered on a stretch of land where the Florida peninsula once reached, the remains of the Native Americans were found on a greater landmass that existed before rising sea levels swept their homes underwater. The human remains were first spotted in 2016 by a group of divers who retrieved a barnacle-crusted jawbone. A single tooth attached to the jawbone with a well-worn molar suggested that it belonged to someone who ate food that was tougher than what we eat today. Something not seen in modern populations, researchers believed it was a quick indicator that the individual's remains were prehistoric. Later dives provided more evidence of the distant past, including a broken arm bone, pieces of skull, carved wooden stakes, and textile fragments that were radiocarbon dated back to 7,000 years ago. The remains of at least 6 individuals from a prehistoric hunter-gatherer society were found and recovered, but experts believe there could possibly be many more in this ancient burial ground. The offshore find is on a massive scale, but it is not the first to be discovered off the Florida peninsula. In the 1980s, an ancient muck pond with skeletal remains of 160 individuals was discovered on the other side of Florida. But this current one, now known as the Minnesota Key Offshore Archaeological Site, is believed to be a burial place where ancient ancestors of Florida's indigenous peoples lowered their dead into an inland freshwater pond. Although it might seem a little gruesome to know there are bones so close to the shore, the site is an important discovery of the ancient people and their culture, and it must be treated with the utmost respect for those who came before us. Ancient religion in Peru. 1,200 years ago, in the middle of Lake Titicaca, the prized possessions of the local people were deposited underwater. In 2013, though, a sparkling collection of objects was unearthed by underwater archaeologists, providing a link to the past. Among the objects found were gold, metal ornaments, and semi-precious stones. Incense burners were also discovered at the site, suggesting the reef was possibly used as a sacred site for ritual purposes. The Talltanic state existed there from between 500 AD to 1000 AD, extending to Chile and Peru at its height. Although the people didn't leave behind any traces of military power, they seem to have amassed influence from religion and trade, making the semi-precious stones and gold found there an important part of the puzzle. Some of the other artifacts found at the site include 2 gold medallions that showed the face of their deity, as well as metal plaques that have a mythical hybrid of a puma and a llama. The remains of real animals were also found, including the bones of 3 young sacrificed llamas. Items made from shells were also found, depicting the importance to early Indian cultures of the sea creatures that are native to the Pacific Ocean. Because the shells were found over 1,200 miles from their nearest habitat, it shows that the Talltanic people and those they traded with saw that the shells had great value. But if these objects were so valuable, why did the people leave them behind in the lake? Some believe that by using valuable materials and rites, worshippers could easily show their commitment to their religious tradition and the deities they worshipped. Unfortunately, the society collapsed around 1000 AD and was overshadowed by cultures that came after it. The greatest Native American empire that many Americans have never heard of, the Talltanic, and their people are once again brought back to life simply by studying the artifacts found deep in the ocean floor of Lake Titicaca. Which of these underwater finds is most compelling to you? Was it the ancient burial site, the creepy museum of former Soviet leaders, or something that didn't make it to the list today? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon for another exciting video. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.